Today, we are going to begin the Chapter 8, Investment Decision Rules. Here is an overview of Chapter 8. In this chapter, we are going to see the definition of the net present value, and we will see what is the net present value decision rule or NPV decision rule. Next, we will learn how to apply the NPV decision rule. After that, we are going to talk about alternative decision rules. And we will see why the NPV decision rule is superior to other alternative decision rules. The decision rules that we are going to cover are IRR, internal rate of return rule, and payback period rule. We are going to also learn how to choose between competing or mutually exclusive projects. At the end, we are going to talk about the profitability index and how to allocate resources among projects when resources are limited. In this particular video, I'm going to talk about the NPV decision rule. But before that, let's see what is the connection of Chapter 8 to the earlier chapters. So recall from Chapter 1 that a financial manager has three main tasks in a corporation. She needs to make investment decisions, and also she needs to make financing decisions. And she needs to manage short-term cash needs of the firm. And she does all of those three tasks in order to maximize the value, maximize the wealth of shareholders, or maximize the value of the company. So in this chapter, we are going to learn about some tools that help us to make these investment decisions. So essentially, the question that we are answering in this chapter is whether or not to accept a project. When should we accept a project and when should we reject a project? Or if we have several competing or mutually exclusive projects, which one we should choose from? So in this slide, I'm going to talk about the net present value. Net present value is simply the difference between the present value of benefits of doing a project and the present value of the cost of doing a project. So by doing a project, we are going to receive some profits, but we may need to also invest some amount of money upfront, and it will have some expenses and costs for us. So the NPV is the difference between the present value of benefits and present value of costs. So you can think of NPV as the cash that the company is going to receive if the company decides to do this project. So let me give you an example. Let's say Dunkin' Donuts wants to invest in cold brew coffee to compete with Starbucks. Currently, let's say the Dunkin' Donuts do not have cold brew coffee in its menu. So at time zero, the Dunkin' Donuts need to make some initial investment, which I call it I0. Okay. So this initial investment might be the special coffee maker machines that can brew the cold brew coffee. Okay, that is made to um, brew the that special type of coffee. Okay, then Dunkin' Donut is going to estimate the cash flows or the profits that it's going to receive from doing that project. So to evaluate the benefits of doing this project to the Dunkin' Donuts shareholders, we need to calculate the present value of each of these cash flows and compare them to the initial investment that we made at time zero. So NPV, there is an alternate way to calculate NPV, which is we can say how much is our initial investment and how much is the present value of future cash flows. Okay, so but for now, let's think about NPV as just the difference between the present value of benefits of a project and the present value of costs of a project. Okay, so here is the NPV decision rule. We should undertake the projects that their benefit is more than their cost. This is very intuitive. But remember, we cannot simply add or subtract cash flows that are happening in different time periods. We need to discount all those cash flows back to time zero so we can add or subtract those cash flows and evaluate uh, the project. So once we do that, if the NPV is higher than zero, we are going to accept that project. This means that doing that project is going to increase the value of the company. If the NPV that we are calculating is negative, we are going to reject that project because that means the cost of doing the project, the initial investment that we are making is larger than the cash flows that we are going to receive because of doing that project. So if the costs are bigger than benefits, there is no reason to do that project, so we will reject that project. So let's say now we have several competing projects. If we want to choose among several different competing projects, we will choose the one with the highest NPV, given that all of those projects have positive NPV. So what I mean is basically if a project, if there are two competing projects, one of them has a positive NPV. So let's say I have two projects. Okay, if the first project has a positive NPV and the second one has a negative NPV, definitely I'm going to choose the one that has the positive NPV and I'm going to reject the second one. But let's say we have two competing projects and both have positive NPVs. Then what we should do in that case? In that case, we are going to choose the one with the highest NPV.